The fragrance of selfless love that has drawn the world into one family. The truth of an eternal message that has been revealed through every act and word. The fulfillment in service that has been taught by relentless sacrifice. The Lord's own life is indeed His message.
Sai Ram, and welcome to the last but one episode of the special teleserial entitled Message of the Lord that we are bringing to you on the eve of the 85th birthday celebrations of our beloved Swami, Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba.
Just to recap, after a brief introduction that was spread over the first two episodes, we spent most of our time trying to absorb the essence of Baba's message of universal love. And now, as we wind down and get ready for Bhagwan Baba's 85th birthday celebrations, it might be useful to quickly go over once more the amazing 8+ decades that the Lord has graciously spent here on earth entirely for our benefit. In the celebrated Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna tells Arjuna,
Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir-bhavati bharata abhyutthanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge.
what Krishna is saying is that God incarnates again and again whenever humanity is in deep trouble, and He does so to protect the good as well as to restore dharma back to its rightful pedestal from which it is periodically toppled by the evildoers. Krishna also adds that one of the mission objectives of the avatar is to give humankind a message. Not surprisingly, the message that every avatar gives to humankind is always the same. I mean, it is after all the same God who keeps coming down to help us. The question arises,
why does God have to repeat the message again and again?
Krishna has himself given the answer. He says that God has to repeat the message again and again because humans have a tendency to forget things rather quickly. And Swami adds an interesting footnote to all this. He says that I have come to give you the message that would redeem you from this worldly bondage forever. But all that people seek from me are mere trinkets. And yet, I give you what you want so that one day you will earnestly yearn for what I have actually come to give.
mercifully, whether we are ready for it or not, Swami has tirelessly given his eternal message almost from the time he incarnated 85 years ago. If you think deeply about it, our beloved Swami has not merely been tirelessly repeating all the good things we need to know. More important, he has also taken enormous trouble to help humanity at the macro level in different ways, and also to cheer and comfort us individually. And all this he has been doing just for our sake. Let's now do a quick flashback. you will recall that it all started from this little house way back in 1926. At that time, there was not even a road leading directly to Puttaparthi. Even in the 70s, Puttaparthi was quite rural. All the changes we now see have been quite recent. You might ask, why on earth did God choose to take birth in a remote hamlet and be born to poor parents? God never does anything without a reason, does he? What that reason is, we shall come to later. There was nothing very unusual about the early life of young Satya, except that the villagers noted that Satya was not only most loving, very compassionate and always ready to help, but also had a divine aura about him. Like all boys, Satya too went to school, but left it abruptly and in dramatic fashion, despite the enormous promise he had shown as an exceptionally bright student. Having left school at the young age of 14, Sri Satya Sai Baba, as he now became known, returned to Puttaparthi, establishing his first ashram, shall we say, in what was a mere tin shed. However, for those who had the blessing to share that roof with Swami, it was more than heaven. In those days, it was very difficult to reach Puttaparthi, since one had to first travel by train to a nearby town called Penukonda. Then, by a horse-drawn cart known as Jatka to the bus stand in Penukonda. Then board a ramshackle bus to Bukkapatnam, transfer to a bullock cart in Bukkapatnam, and, after travelling a few kilometres by the cart, do the last lap literally on foot while crossing the river Chitravati. However, none of these difficulties could stop the early pilgrims, for they had already been chosen and were drawn to the Lord incarnate by the sheer power of divine attraction. At times, Swami would even wait for the devotees on the other side of the river. Imagine that! Yes, non-stop flow of pure love became the hallmark of the old mandir, and there were any number of spectacular miracles too during that early phase of the avatar. But behind all that was the silent message: I am not what you think I am. I am verily the incarnation of God, come here to help you personally, uplift humanity as a whole, and restore dharma to its rightful place in society. Back in those days, when everyone was enveloped by Swami's amazing love and lifted to cloud 9, few realized that Swami had actually come with a mission and a message, both of which would stir the entire world, bringing people from all corners of the globe to Puttaparthi. How could those simple early comers ever imagine such things, since Puttaparthi was at that time still a village that got its first apology of a road only around 1950 or so? As Swami once told his students, when God comes, he always does so with a master plan. The advent of God in this Kali age was no exception, and as we told you earlier, by way of signalling to the world that he meant business, Swami moved on 23rd November 1950 from the Pata Mandiram to what was then called the New Mandir, and subsequently came to be called Prashanti Nilayam. In a sense, Prashanti Nilayam became not merely Swami's headquarters, but as Howard Murfitt once described it, the place where all roads end. The divine dynamo that Swami was, things now began to move at a hectic pace. Daily darshans followed by bhajan singing and interviews for the lucky ones became the unique hallmark that began to attract crowds in larger and larger numbers. Soon, Swami had another ashram, this one in a suburb of Bangalore called Whitefield. With God, spirituality is always priority number one. In the context of India, the Vedas represented the principal gateway to spirituality, and Swami's historic association with the Raja of Venkatagiri and his regular trips to Venkatagiri starting in 1950 played an important part in planting the seed of the Vedic spirit in Prashanti Nilayam. While some confused spirituality with religion, Swami soon began to draw, slowly but surely, devotees from all over the world. One of the very first to come in this manner was Howard Murfitt. A native of Australia and a veteran of World War II, Murfitt was first drawn to the yogic masters, but in the end, he inevitably ended up in Prashanti. His first visit was in 1964, and thereafter he became a regular visitor. He observed meticulously and carefully documented all the miracles he witnessed in his book, Man of Miracles, which then attracted many an overseas devotee to Prashanti. Shortly after that came Dr. John Hislop of America, who, after a quest for peace for many years and after trying all versions of meditation, also ended up at Swami's lotus feet. Swami gave Hislop generous attention. Bhagavan also took great pains to answer all the spiritual questions that Hislop asked over many years. Later, Hislop wrote many books, all of which helped to increase the traffic of overseas devotees to Prashanti. There is one amazing experience that Hislop had, which is best narrated by Hislop himself. Here is a clip recorded by late Richard Bock of America.
We were in India in the Bandipur forest at the time of Mahashivaratri, and Swami was driving around through the forest with several people to locate a place where the ceremony could be held. And we finally found a dry river bottom, and that evening we all came back again, got out of the cars and started to walk down the slope of the hill towards the dry river bottom. I happened to be walking beside Swami, and we passed a small bush, and Swami picked off 2 twigs and held them in the form of a cross like that, and said, Hislop, what is that? I said, well, Swami, it's a cross. So he then put the 2 twigs in his hand like that, and blew 3 times on his hand, and opened his hand, and there was this cross that you see here on the back of my hand. He said, this is Christ as he really and truly was, not as artists and historians have pictured him. His stomach's all drawn in through several days of no food and so on. So I looked at it and I said, well, Swami, what is that hole at the top of the cross? He said, that is the hole that was made in the cross to hang the cross on a standard. And he said, furthermore, the wood of the cross is a piece of the actual cross upon which Christ was crucified. Then he added, and I can tell you it took a little time and trouble to find a piece of that wood after some 2,000 years.
Swami always stressed that every religion is but one of many pathways to God, just as the top of Everest can be reached in many ways, including from the Nepali side as well as the Tibetan side. To reinforce the point, Swami adds that there may be many rivers on a continent, but they all flow into the same ocean. In other words, every faith helps one to become godly and move towards God. Thus it is that Baba told Christians to be good Christians, Muslims to be good Muslims, and so on, driving home the point that spirituality transcends all religions. As if to emphasize what he meant, in 1978, Swami had a mosque built for the Muslims of Puttaparthi, who till then had to go a long distance to pray in a mosque. Today the mosque has expanded and draws big crowds for prayers every day. Swami also had a unique monument constructed in his ashram called the Sarva Dharma Pillar that highlights the unity of all faiths. In addition, the celebration of Christmas in Prashanti became a much anticipated event every year, attended by Christians from all over the world. Buddhists too came regularly to celebrate their festivals. In the midst of all this, for years and years, Swami travelled tirelessly all over India, not only attracting huge crowds, but also filling them with bliss by giving darshan. He also delivered innumerable discourses in the course of his travels. In every one of them, he always stressed that humans were truly the embodiments of the divine and must therefore act in tune with the divine spark latent within them.
Money comes and goes, morality comes and grows.
It is no great surprise that Swami draws people from all over the world, for it is inherent in the nature of the divine to attract. Pure love always attracts, and that is all there is to it. While the spiritual underpinning of Swami's mission was continually growing and blossoming like a huge and beautiful tree, simultaneously the substantive parts of his mission were also duly launched and began to take strong roots not only in India but throughout the world. At this stage, we should pause for a moment to appreciate a few important points, the most important of which is all these were achieved by Baba without invoking any divine or superhuman powers. Remember I told you earlier that incarnating in a remote village seemed to have a purpose? Look at Puttaparthi now. It is quite urban. All this in what was once a village that was described in 1968 by a Hollywood movie director as being 160 kilometers from Bangalore and 10 minutes from the Stone Age. And yet, not so long ago, this is how it was. The point is that Swami is sending us this message. Look, I was born poor. I did not have proper education. I quit school at the age of 14. India was not free then and quite backward. It was impossible even to have the kind of dreams I promised I would achieve. And yet, all that happened. How? Because of the power of pure and selfless love. That love is in every one of you. God has given that limitless treasure to every single individual. Open the treasure chest and use that unlimited wealth. If you do that, anything can be done. I have told you so many times, I am God, but so are you. If you have that faith and are ready to tap that wealth, then there is nothing you cannot do.
Many people just shrug off and say, look, at the end of the day, if you don't have money, nothing can be done. Well, how much money did Swami have on 20th of October 1940? By the way, if you raise the question of money with Swami, you know what his reply would be? He would simply say,
money is needed, no doubt, but it is not the most important requirement. What is needed is a pure heart to start with, lots of compassion for those who are suffering, a firm as well as unshakable determination, and the willingness to sacrifice to any extent. Add to all this pure love, and you are off to a great start. You too can do it if you really want to. Why do I say so? Because God is right within you and His love is available without limit in your heart. If you are driven by selfless goals and tap this love, you can be sure that God's grace would make all that you want happen. In fact, much better than you could have imagined. Way back in 1947, Swami wrote to his elder brother, and through that letter also announced to the world that his glory would grow astronomically in the years to come, and many would actually see it all happening in their lifetime. That indeed has happened. But people nevertheless ask, right now, following the fractures he suffered in 2003 and subsequently, we see Swami moving about only on a chair. Why is this? He has so much power, and if he so chose, he could easily get up and not merely walk but also run. What is the mystery behind this? This is an important issue, and we shall spend a few minutes reflecting on this mystery before we bring this episode to an end. Yes, innumerable are the medical miracles that Swami has performed. Way back in the year 1968, during birthday celebrations, there was a lady from overseas who was, due to paralysis, confined to a chair and had to watch all the proceedings from there. But you know what? Swami unexpectedly went up to her, made her get up and walk in full public view. And then there is the even more spectacular story of the revival of Walter Cowan of America in 1971. Cowan was quite ill when he came with his wife Elsie Cowan to India to have Swami's darshan. Swami was in Madras at that time. There, in the early hours of Christmas, Walter Cowan became very sick and was removed from the hotel to a hospital. The hospital doctor examined Cowan and found that he had already passed away. As they say, Cowan was dead on arrival. Early next morning, unknown to his entourage, Swami drove to the hospital, quietly went inside unnoticed to the place where Cowan's body lay, and brought Walter Cowan back to life. No one else was present. Later, when the doctor came into the room where Cowan's body was, he was shocked to see the man he had declared dead alive and sitting. In 1972, Swami celebrated in Brindavan the remarriage of Elsie Cowan and Walter Cowan, now aged 84, and come back from the dead. And so we come back to the question, if Swami can do all this, why does he not cure himself? He is divine, is he not? Swami has himself given the answer, but before I refer to that, I call your particular attention to the following facts. He is 85, but has never had to use spectacles. If he wants to read anything, he just holds the paper in his hands and simply reads the paper. Can anyone his age do that? Look at his hair. It is as dark as ever. Who at that age can boast of such a lovely crown of hair? By the way, he has never gone to a dentist, not once in all these years. Which of us can claim that? And his weight, steady as ever, no change at all. And just look at the glow on his face, especially when he is in a big crowd of devotees. Even now, I stress, who can match that? All this is enough to prove that he is divinity personified. But why then does he not walk? Actually, Baba has himself hinted at the answer. Anytime this question is raised, Baba either dismisses the question with a smile or replies, "These things happen to the body, and they are part of the natural process. However, one must learn not to pay too much attention to such inconveniences. I don't. After all, I am not the body." As Swami once told devotees, when God comes down in human form, he would act very much like humans. You get hurt, don't you? So do I. These things are to be expected. All avatars impose on themselves certain restrictions, one of which is never to use their divine power to overcome physical problems that arise purely due to natural processes. Sometimes I too get cough and cold, and even run temperature. I simply cannot use my powers to cure myself. Have you not noticed that in the end, all the earlier avatars who came bearing the human form, Rama, Krishna and Shirdi Baba, have without exception bowed eventually to time? So, avatars allow their bodies to suffer pain and problems just to demonstrate to the world that in such matters they are like everyone else. However, there are things where the way I act is different from what most people do. It is through those acts I teach my lessons, and it is those actions of mine that you must pay close attention to. Avatars are God in human form and live very much as we do. But what really distinguishes them is total and consistent purity and harmony of feelings, thought, word and deed. Thus it is, Swami always radiates pure love, since God is love and love is God. You may remember that Swami often says, I am God and so are you. The difference is that I know it, but you do not. Why is it that we are not able to know that we are God? Because of spiritual ignorance. How to banish that ignorance? By becoming familiar with the teachings of Baba and making earnest efforts to follow them. It is to make devotees familiar with the depth and breadth of Swami's teachings that we have made a special effort to bring to you this month-long serial. Just imagine how much sacrifice Baba has made at the human level for our sake. Yes, he is doing so much for us all the time. Should we not also try to do something for him by absorbing his teachings and following them? Think about it. Jai Sai Ram.